everybody, and welcome back to another great video where we're going to be discussing the movie American Underdog, which I just recently sat down to see and am very excited to give my review and breakdown, analysis, all that good stuff. Let's do this. All right, so I mentioned in an earlier video that this was one of the most anticipated movies of the year for me. I was really looking forward to watching this because, as I told you earlier, in my opinion, Kurt Warner is the best player ever in the NFL. And what I was wondering is, could the movie really capture that, or would it just be one of those little things that just didn't do a good job, didn't treat it with any gravity or respect? It was just one of those little, just cheap little filler movies. Well, I'm very happy to say, I'm just going to give you my outs right on the outside. I'm just going to say no, it wasn't. And I'm very happy about that. Right when I sat down to watch it, I was curious I just checked the cast and director and all that. Didn't really recognize anybody in the cast except for Dennis Quaid. I've seen him in a couple of movies. He's all right. I noticed it was also directed by the Erwin brothers, and I'm always interested in knowing the directors and producers. I remember the name Erwin brothers because of the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Not because I ever saw the movie, I didn't, but because I remember the soundtrack. And I remember the soundtrack because when I first picked up guitar, Man of Sorrows, remember that? Song of the Year and all that? That was one of the first songs I ever learned to play on the guitar. And it was a basic version. It was like a 2-chord version, you know, but I remember the soundtrack for that reason. I've heard it a couple of times, and that's why I remember the name Erwin Brothers after all these years. I was really wondering if they could do a football movie. This is new for them. And I'm very happy to say yes. Yes, they did a great job, and I'm going to talk about why. And one more thing I want to get out of the way, it was also produced by Kurt and Brenda Warner, Kurt Warner's wife, which is really good because that always means that it's going to be good, and at least it would be accurate. All right, well, let's talk about it. So right when I sat down to watch it, the very opening scene, I just knew everything was going to go right. You hear Kurt Warner's voiceover coming as the camera dramatically, goes into this little house in Iowa, and there's a little boy, a little Kurt Warner, watching Super Bowl 19. Why is that so significant? Because if you've ever listened to Kurt Warner before, he will always say his favorite game he's ever seen was Super Bowl 19, and that his favorite player was Joe Montana. So for them to put it right there is absolutely brilliant. Shows that they know that his story and the person pretty well. And from there, the story is told from more of a first-person perspective, both shifting from Kurt Warner, mostly his perspective, and also his wife, Brenda Warner. And they gave her a lot of depth and characterization. There's a lot in it that makes you empathize with her, with good reason, because if you've ever heard him talk before, Warner was always a guy who wore his fame pretty lightly. I'm sure he enjoyed it and stuff. I'm not saying he was just totally humble. I'm sure he enjoyed moments of it, but he would always say, he said, look, everybody thinks I'm this great person. He said, in my mind, I'm just average. Big deal, He'd always say, I won that Super Bowl because I had a great team behind me. They're the guys you should be looking at. He said, my story is just average. He said, my wife's more inspiring to me than me, And that's why the film, to my surprise, focused a lot on Brenda Warner as well. And again, as I said, with good reason. In my opinion, she was a very tough individual and definitely deserves to be noticed in the way this movie did. Now, let me tell you about the other thing that really took me by surprise in this movie. The movie focuses less on Kurt Warner, the football player, and more on Kurt Warner, the person. Again, I didn't expect that at first. That took me by surprise a little bit. There is some pretty good football action. By the way, the cinematography all throughout is really, really good, just so you know. And the more I thought about it after the movie was over, I thought, is this really the right approach? And the more I think about it, I think that was the right approach. It definitely made for a more stick-to-your-ribs experience. This is a movie that's really going to stick with you, and you will remember, in my opinion. It's very memorable. There's a lot of high-end drama, but not like the uncomfortable reality show drama that just makes you go, ugh. No. It's just real life. Warner and his wife trying to just get through life. There's all kinds of scenes. If you don't know the story, trust me, you will remember these scenes for a long time. You will remember watching Warner, in college, try to practice and try out and hoping to get that starting position. And the coach telling him, look, you're talented. You got a rocket of an arm, but you don't stay in the pocket. You're untrained. Go back to the cornfield, You'll never forget watching him work at the Hy-Vee. We all know that story, the little itty-bitty little supermarket, He went from being a walk-on to the Packers to stocking shelves all night, And Or in my opinion, the one you really won't forget is where he was so broke at one point, his car ran out of gas in the middle of a snowstorm. And there's his wife and kids just sitting there shivering, and he had to run up the road several miles to go get gas. And by the way, if you're wondering how he got the money for gas, he'd like scrounge around his car and just hope to find a little bit of change here and there. And he came up with like $1.50, and that's just all the gas he could get. And by the way, that's accurate. That wasn't just for artistic purposes. I've heard Warner tell that story. He said, yeah, in order to get the money, I just had to look around and hope I had some pennies or something. I mean, that's how broke he was at the time. Nobody would ever have thought that this guy one day would be a Super Bowl champion. Nobody, except for his wife. She never stopped believing in him. We love that. So again, there's all these great scenes watching him struggle and doubt himself and things, and yet he never gives up. We love that kind of thing. And it really does say something, in my opinion, about the kind of person he is. If you can go through that and still remain committed and still stay strong, I mean, that takes a deep level of mental strength for sure to endure all that. Just keep going and never stop believing that one day it's going to be you. And by the way, he never thought he was going to be Super Bowl champion. He just hoped one day he would play in the NFL. Super Bowl champion. Whew. And that's the other standout thing is right at the very opening lines of the movie is this, where he talks about all the people who go into college. And from the people who go to high school to college, only a small percentage of those go to college. And even less of a percent of those ever, like a 1% of the 1%, make it to the NFL. And only the 1% of the 1% of the 1% win a Super Bowl. Yeah, that's the kind of odds he was dealing with. I got to be honest, if I didn't know who this guy was, I would have bet against him, but he made it. I mean, we know this story, but it's still just great to see it on screen and watch it. There's a lot of very heartwarming scenes, very touching scenes for sure. Both happy, both sad, all this good stuff just comes together in such a great way. It's a brilliantly made film. I think the Erwin brothers really treated this with the respect and gravity it deserved. This is not a trashy movie. This is not just a filler movie you'll forget about later. This truly is an unforgettable movie, and I mean that. I know everybody says that, but I truly mean that when I say this. Warner's Story is one I've never forgotten, ever. Not that I've lived all that long and could forget about it, but you understand what I'm saying. It's one of the things I've remembered the most. This movie did a great job of capturing why he is my favorite football player. So if you're asking my verdict, 9 out of 10, it did such a great job. The only thing I would give it a demerit for, and this is just me being nitpicky, okay, is I kind of hoped it would show a little more scenes from the Super Bowl he won in 1999. I kind of wished it would have showed that a little bit, but okay, it's not a big deal. I showed a couple of clips just here and there right at the end, kind of as an upload, but that's okay. I mean, really, it is, because we know that story. We know what happens. It's not a big deal. And again, this is more about Warner the person, less so about Warner the football player. It's just a great movie. It's a truly unforgettable experience. Just coming up for rental. And if you're wondering if you should rent it, I do, or buy it. Yeah, either way, sit down, watch this movie. This is not a movie where you'll just look at your watch, go, oh, when's this going to be over? Trust me, it's very gripping. It's entertaining, but it's not entertainment. Does that make sense? And again, you won't forget this one. This is truly one of the greatest stories I've ever heard, in my opinion. But I think you'll agree with me when you see this. So again, highly recommended, 9 out of 10. Great job, Erwin Brothers. You did such a brilliant job. This is a great movie. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, I know it's early to say this, but I predict this is going to be this will be one of the movies that have stuck out most to me about the year of 2022. When the year is over and I look back over the year, this is going to be like one of the highlight parts of the year was sitting down to watch this movie. It was really good. It was well done. I highly recommend it. And I just want to thank you all for watching this video. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe, people. Just want to let you know, no charge. I'm not charging you to subscribe. So it's totally free. Hit that button. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again on the next video. Couldn't help yourself.